The Yamaguchi-gumi is the big dog, right? They're the Goldman Sachs of organized crime in Japan. I mean, they're huge. And the second in command, Takayama-san, he really felt that the authorities were trying to pass a criminal conspiracy law. And then he was also arrogant, and he felt like we don't need to cooperate with these people anymore. We're big. We have inroads into the stock market. We're powerful. We have politicians in our pocket. We don't need to kowtow to the police. So it became a very confrontational and uncooperative relationship. Now that sounds ridiculous, right? Like what, wasn't it always confrontational, uncooperative? No, that wasn't the norm. So what the Yamaguchi-gumi Kodokai did that was really unusual is they hired a private detective agency called the Garu Agency to go to SoftBank, which is a telecommunications provider. All of this is well documented if people are interested, and said, get us the phone numbers of the cops that are investigating us. So once they had those phone numbers, they used the phone numbers to track down where the cops lived. And then they started taking photos of the guys' families and collecting information on the police officers. And so these, you'd have a detective who'd be interrogating a Yakuza, and, in the middle of interrogation, the Yakuza would say, hey, it's already 5 p.m. Shouldn't you be home for your daughter's birthday? And obviously that's like, okay, I know you have a daughter. I know that it's her birthday. I know a lot about you. Do you really want to screw with me? And wow, did that not go over well with the Japanese police. And the Aichi Prefectural Police did something absolutely unprecedented at the time. They started raiding a bunch of offices without an appointment. Now, that's kind of funny. I mean, it is sort of humorous. Like, oh my God, the police are raiding Yakuza offices without an appointment. But when they did that, they found surveillance photos of their families and their friends. And they were like, screw these guys. Like, they have gotten, uppity. Like, we're not going to put up with this anymore. When the Yakuza are threatening detectives, this is in Mexico. This is unacceptable. And so those complaints went all the way up to the National Police Agency. And the head of the National Police Agency at the time, Ando Takuharu, I think it's Takuharu, or it might be Tokuharu. Ando said, basically, okay, I hear you. We're not going to put up with this. So on September 30th, 2009, he, at a press conference, declared war on the Yamaguchi-gumi Kodokai. So you have, the National Police Agency, the top commissioner, the top dog, says in a press conference, basically, we are going to war with the Yamaguchi-gumi Kodokai, not the entire Yamaguchi-gumi, and not all the Yakuza, but this particular faction, the ruling faction, this group of 2,000 people amongst the Yakuza, amongst these 86,000, because they're aggressive, they're uppity, they don't cooperate with us, they are doing things that are unprecedented, it can hurt the economy, and they are threatening police officers. And we are going to remove them from public society. Now, he didn't just say destroy them, get rid of them. He said, we're going to remove them from public society, meaning you won't be able to see their presence. They will be gone. And that is really the beginning of the end of the Yakuza. And at the same time, in Fukuoka, where they were, where a lot of businesses were refusing to do business with the Yakuza or pay them protection money anymore, the Kudokai was throwing grenades into, clubs and severely wounding people and killing them. And so, the Japanese police were kind of like, what should we do? We know we've got the Yakuza are aggressive. They're intimidating us. They're attacking civilians. How can we stop them? And so there was a discussion within the National Police Agency, which basically designs policy, but doesn't actually have a police force. Imagine the FBI with all the bureaucracy, but none of the power to actually do anything directly. They're like, how can we get rid of these guys? How can we finally put them out of business? And the consensus was, and I talked to one of the officers in the planning division at the time on the record, was we'll never be able to get a law that will, a national law on the books that will prohibit paying off the Yakuza. We'll never be able to get that done at a federal level. But they were consulting with a lawyer named Igari Toshiro, who was a former prosecutor who really disliked the Yakuza and had some run-ins with Goto Gumi, which was one of the most vicious of the factions. And he was the guy who came up with this brilliant idea of getting rid of Yakuza by putting clauses in contracts called organized crime exclusionary clauses. And what those clauses basically is whenever you're in Japan, when you check into a hotel, you join a sports club, you join a gym, you try and rent a car, you try and get a cell phone. There's a little clause which says, I am not a member of an organized crime group and I am not associated with any. But if you are a Yakuza and you do sign that, then you've committed fraud. Then you can be arrested. But if you don't sign it, you can't have a bank account. You can't rent a car. You can't rent an office. And that's very problematic. In the consultation with the National Police Agency, the conclusion that they reached was, what if we created ordinances? And ordinances are very weak laws, but local laws that essentially took this exclusionary clause and turned it into the law. So these organized crime exclusionary ordinances, which first started appearing in 2009, these ordinances made it a crime to pay off the Yakuza. So if you do business with them, if you associate with them, if you provide them money or you hire them for their services, you would be a criminal. Now, it was a three-step process to get in deep trouble for doing that, but it was a clear indication that it was no longer acceptable to pay the Yakuza protection money. And Fukuoka, which had the most violence, was the first place to pass that ordinance. And they knew that there would be a lot of resistance. So, police were sent all over from Tokyo, from Osaka, from Nara, and with the implementation of these laws. And it took 2 years, from 2009, and the last places to have these on the books was Tokyo on October 1st, 2011. And then everywhere in the country, it was illegal to pay off the Yakuza. And that really hurt their business because a lot of businesses said, I'm sorry, we're not going to pay you off anymore. We're not giving you protection money. We're not going to use your leasing services because that will make us criminals. And if we get named as someone that is doing business with you, if the police put out an announcement, so-and-so corporation is doing business with the Yakuza, they have been warned, then we lose our banking, we lose our bank accounts, we probably lose our lease. We aren't able to do business anymore. So sorry, no thank you. And man, that was really effective. And the ordinances also encouraged, in quotation, every business to put these organized crime exclusionary clauses in their contracts. And so what that has done is it created an atmosphere where it was much easier for companies and people to refuse to pay money to organized crime. And at the same time, it accelerated the exclusion of these guys from society. And, if you can't have a bank account, if you can't have, if you can't rent a car, or you can't play golf, or you can't check into a hotel, life is very hard. And even though there are ways around this, and you can find someone to, maybe you can find someone to do these works for you or sign it up, or buy a car in your name, there's still this risk of getting caught. And so, the inconvenience of being a Yakuza and the fact that a lot of their money is dried up because people don't want to pay protection money because it's too risky, right? The cost benefit analysis of, do I pay these people off or do I pay these people off and risk losing everything, or do I, or do not pay them and have the small risk that there's some kind of retaliation from them? And most people have chosen that, to not pay them.